Welcome to the Agile Talks again. And in the same day, in the same time, we are here to talk with you and to learn together and to grow together. So let me share before the start today's guest. I want to share some tips about the X session, and we complete the X session with Arivan Bennekum, who is the co-author of Agile Manifesto. I take lots of notes, but I want to share some important ones. And he shared with us we need to focus to whole steps, not just, for example, to development or to test or to analyze step. We need to focus the whole steps in value stream. And we need to focus on delays. I take my notes, and dependencies is important, and also individual dependencies or external dependencies is important. He shared with us, and less hierarchy, and he mentioned the quality and focus on more value. So after sharing these informations, I want to invite today's guest, and Jon Kern will be with us, who is the co-author of Agile Manifesto, and I want to invite him. Welcome, Jon.
I feel after all the music, I should like run up like it's on stage, but instead I'll just walk slowly.
Yeah, great. And also you will walk the whole session, and I try to complete it in 1 hour, not much more, to your healthy.
Good.
Yeah, are you ready for the session? A bit challenging questions, a bit the standard questions.
Yeah, bring it on.
Yeah, okay. Let's start the easiest question. This is my standard question. Who is Jon?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, I've been blessed with a wonderful career, starting with being a dishwasher and at a ripe young age, and working myself up to aerospace engineering, working on cruise missile engine testing, research and development, and what got me into software were some very pragmatic ways for an engineer to solve problems, and worked on a flight simulator for the F-14 with a centrifuge. I put many pilots through flat spin awareness and training. In case you don't know, like if you watch the movie Top Gun, the first one,
Yeah,
the Rio, the radar
the X
interceptor.
one.
Yeah, Goose died because they got into a flat spin, and when they ejected, so it was a real thing. I mean, the F-14 did go into flat spin, so it's -6 G's eyeballs out. But I worked on the software and blended my aerospace knowledge with software, so I learned software from a lot of experts. At my own company, helped design and build IBM's manufacturing execution system. Very, very grueling. 10 years shoved into 3. Founded my own company doing that. Worked with Peter Code, and we founded TogetherSoft, with a few other people. TogetherSoft was a very powerful UML modeling tool, and we went from like 6 people in the basement to 400 in 3 years. Another 10 years shoved into 3, just very high pace, high stress. So I'm glad I got all that out of the way. And during the TogetherSoft days, it's really when the Agile Manifesto occurred. I had been working in Defense Department type work for years prior to founding my own company. And so I created a lightweight process and started working with Peter Code. He's kind of my object-oriented guru and whatnot. So I had a good taste of what heavyweight process was like. I was honored enough to have gotten a chance to go to Snowbird. And, you can imagine if you read the 4 values and think about if you might be able to imagine what government defense contracting software development might have been like, with military standards specification for how to do software, very heavyweight. So you can imagine the reason I was very passionate about at least 3 out of the 4 bullets on the values, because it spoke to me as a just being pragmatic and whatnot. So yeah, I've been blessed to create other production software. I still code to this day. I have a software web application for firefighters, and I try to practice what I preach. It's a little hard sometimes I'll admit, Agile starts with me. It's not somebody else's job to do it. So yeah, it's a little bit about me. I still write code, production code almost every week, and love helping. Right now I'm working with Adaptivist for the past few years, and a great colleague of mine, Jon Kern. We've become fast friends, and he's really helped open my eyes to, I always said people, process, and tools, but I've learned a lot more about the people side of things, and some almost like, I call it the secret sauce or the missing piece to my practice of learning a little bit more about kind of what makes people tick, their mindset, their ways of making meaning, and how critical that is to everything we do.
Yeah, we will talk about that topics also. And also, my second question is about Agile Manifesto. And when I'm checking some things about you on internet, I saw some documents and some notes, your notes about the Agile Manifesto. To remind it, I want to mention, I want to mention it. And my question is about, yeah, just think about that notes. And I know I saw lots of detailed notes, and that was great. And also, lots of people need to find that notes and to read it, because it's burning of Agile Manifesto and burning of new things and new words. So my question is about, if you had the chance to change that notes or the manifesto, how can you do that? Yeah.
Yeah, my short answer is I would not. And
Oh, why?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because it was a very unique and rare coming together of 17 different minds. I like to say we left our egos at the door and really were able to share and explore together and create some magic that we certainly didn't anticipate anything happening like what did happen, right? We did not go in. I'm pretty sure that there's a couple of really lovely aspects. So, okay, I'm a little bit of a pack rat. I was digging through some of my notes from other projects. I was actually looking up for the IBM manufacturing execution system, because I just was this morning talking to a manufacturing client prospect. So I wanted to remind myself of what I did back in 95 to 98 with, and lo and behold, where those notes you're talking about for the 3 days in 2001 up at Snowbird. And you can find those. I know a friend of mine, they're running Agile Uprising, and I gave them the notes. So I think if you can find and I'm happy to share them with anybody, but the sort of the accidental occurrence of something that turned out to light a flame, that's not something you edit, right? I mean, it was a unique opportunity to put some ideas down in a very humble. If you look at it today, I'd like to point out, even the preamble is very humble. And I think humility is one of the biggest things to strive for in our business, or probably in anything, frankly. But at the top it says we are uncovering. It's not past tense. It's present. It's active, and we're doing it by doing. So it's not by observing. It's not by being a coach on the sidelines. It's by playing the game. It's by being in the mud. It's by being immersed, and we're still learning. And then even the sort of the shading, because we had very different opinions about anything from the length of time. Well, it should be 2 weeks, or it should be a month. Don't care. Do Kanban, doesn't matter. right? So
Mm-hmm.
we put in a lot of, because I'm a big nut about documentation, but some of the documentation required during Defense Department work was meaningless and just stupid. And why should I waste my time doing something of low value? So we put in there another, the range of we prefer this over that was also, it's humble. We're not telling you which way to sway the pendulum. You get to use your own brain in your context to do the right thing for your customers, that kind of thing. So, um, I think we got at the essence, the gist, maybe because most of us were object modelers, at least a lot of us are very good at modeling and coming up with abstractions and getting at the gist of a problem. And I think that's something that should just remain. And there's other people who've gone and taken it further. Modern Agile, Josh Krefsky, and there's
Mm-hmm.
the Heart of Agile. There's other, and I'm, knock yourselves out. Like someone else can do the next level or whatever it is. I frankly think people need to just keep reading it, keep trying to do that, because apparently y'all still don't understand what we were saying, because there's a lot of faux Agile out there and Agile in name only, and people still don't get it. So anyway, that's a long way to still say my short answer, which is no, I don't think we should change it.
Okay, great. And also, I think the key point is ego, because last week while I'm discussing with Ari, he said me, John said to us while trying to improve some things, let's put our egos and start to create value. I think that's the key points, because now in lots of agile coach, transformation experts, or any C-level manager, and working with their egos, and it affects the value. So I think that's very key point to create any value.
Yeah, one of my jokes is software would be really easy if it weren't for all the people. You
Hmm.
know, we
Yeah.
often get in our own way.
Okay, let's continue with the third question. But before the ask question, I want to ask our attendees, if you have any question, you can share on your chat. And I want to say you can write hello and your country, your city, and we can see in which city or country we are watching. So let's continue with the second question. I asked the same question to Jeff, and the success of agile transformations is seriously low. Yeah, we know that. And what do you attribute this to? Yeah, I'm wondering about your answer.
Yeah, and that's a hard answer, because how many have I been involved with or looked at, or how much data do I have, or anybody? Um, Jeff probably has a lot, so I would believe what he says. I think it's, I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but agile transformation or digital transformation, they're kind of junk, what I would call a junk term, right?
Mhm.
It's I often talk about when working with teams that we're trying to, I call it the thought bubble above our head. When someone says a word, what appears
Mhm.
above your head, my head, anybody else's head. So when we talk about agile transformation, are we sure we even know what we mean and what we're doing? Who knows? But I believe that what I try to preach and demonstrate through my actions is, it has to start with me. I think a lot of times, and I've been brought into some companies. Hey, we want to go agile. We want to get our development going faster and better. And that's some leadership group pointing at everyone else to
Mhm.
get better. You all transform. Yeah,
Mhm.
no, that's not how it works. So it's that lack of a holistic approach, or it's someone else's job to you go be agile. Meanwhile, in this particular company, we sort of surreptitiously did a value stream map with one
Mhm.
group, like an hour at a time. It's very painful and slow, but we just kept at it. And lo and behold, it boiled down to 8 months of essentially effort to decide to do 8 weeks worth of work is kind of my short way to think of it. That's so much process up front and so much waste, yet they only want that little sliver. You all need to get faster. Well, no, it's this whole, so it's that other people need to get faster. You all need to be more agile. Well, no, the rest of your company needs to come along for the ride. So I think that's probably one of the biggest issues is, number one, people don't know what it means, maybe. And number two, it's always somebody else's job to transform. So I think it's can be set up for failure by not being properly defined. Like, what are we trying to do? What is our goal? What are we attempting? And matter of fact, the organization I was talking with this morning had a really good thought that it extends beyond your own company. It's actually, and this has been success for my career, is doing the right things by the customer, right? So bring them into the right. You need to know your customer really well, and it's not just from the context of how do we work better, but it's how do we holistically deliver more value. So anyway, that's why I think it fails. People are too narrowly focused.
And also Shiripani Krishna, yeah, if I say the name right, scaling. He said, I think he mentioned what you are talking about, scaling. Is it right or?
Well, that's another good one. Agile at scale.
Yeah,
So maybe because I'm an engineer and I've always thought systems thinking, or somehow I learned that you wiggle one part of the system, it can affect other parts. So for me, scaling, this might sound harsh, but if you cannot do agile in the small, or scaling that's not going to work, right? You could go through the motions, you could try to instill a bigger process, but if you don't understand the fundamentals, all you're doing is maybe getting more people in different roles, taking longer to figure things out, because scaling requires so much more than I think meets the eye, because many times I see companies that are struggling and their damn architecture doesn't support the scaling they want to do. No matter, I guess you could hire more people, but is that scaling?
Yeah.
It's like, you have a problem if you have to, stand up more servers or something like that, or do things by hand because you don't have a good approach. So that's, again, another that's a time to think more holistically. What do we want to scale? What's holding us back? Because adding more people and more conversations and more touch points and more dependencies, that's the antithesis of scaling. So anyway, you could talk a whole hour about.
Yeah, okay. And also Leela shared some comments about, without having a strong foundation, we can't scale up to bigger level.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I push, is you have to have a vision. And this works for a new product, major feature set. It's very recursive, or even a single feature. So it's the same kind of concepts. I'm a simple man, and I can recursively apply these simple concepts. And the foundation is, I know I have a vision of the expected outcomes, where we're going, some direction that everybody knows. So a lot of this has to do with sharing knowledge, bringing people along. I need to understand just enough, and this is where it gets difficult. I need to do just enough understanding of the requirements to answer maybe the next step I need to do. Because sometimes you're trying to get a feel for starting something broader. Okay, I'm going to do I need to know what the expected outcome is. What's the purpose? What's value? Like, it's hard to do value work if you don't know what the value is. I need to understand the high level requirements that materially affect my approach. I don't need all the details. right now, because those are easy. I need to have this is a big one, the problem domain well understood. And by that, I mean a business model, whatever you want to call it, but the language of the business of the place that you're trying to provide value to, that's really key, because that helps us form a vocabulary. I need to understand how we architect it, because I don't want 10 different versions of how we do the same sort of feature because we had 10 different opinions. I'd rather have a single, consistent, even mediocre approach, but it works, because I can always improve a consistent mediocre approach to get it one step better. But having 5 different approaches, hey, the beauty of architecture is we have 5 different kinds in our system. No, that's mind-numbing. And then the ability to, I always challenge that the features need to be spoken in terms of expected outcomes. Why are we building this? Okay, well then I'm going to embed in the system the ability to emit metrics. So did we get those outcomes? And it's all kinds of things that have to be in foundation, and that those proper, like design by interface is one of my favorite, because that allows different teams to run at different speeds with an agreed upon. Well, you build me a plug with 2 prongs and I'll build you a socket with 2 holes in it. Cool. And then we can go off and work at our own speed and use feature flags. So all those kinds of things need to be in place. And I submit, if you do that, I mean, the IBM MES, it was probably 200 or 300 problem domain classes, maybe 25 people. C++, back in the day, I basically invented something that looked a lot like maybe a Rails type application, and scaled beautifully, because we had all the foundation in place, and you didn't need 100 people to do it. Because you had poor architecture, you had poor process management. So, that's my first go-to, is to get things set up. It's a little bit like, I'll go on a little bit here, but two years ago, I went whitewater rafting with a friend of mine that I work with, Nick Balashevsky. And we went down pretty well-known stretch of river that was brutally cold, off-grid, just the 2 of us. Nobody coming to the rescue if you got into trouble, kind of a thing. And what was really cool to me was he was the expert. I was just the cheerleader, coach, and beer drinker. But it was very important how you set up. First, we surveyed, especially something called Hell's Half Mile, with a rock called Lucifer that you don't want to hit because you could, wreck the boat. Right? All these scary names, because the first expedition did wreck boats. The scouting, the learning, and then finally coming back ready to do it. The setup was so key. You get to right before the rapid start, it's kind of calm, and it's all in the setup. Sometimes he would row backwards to slow us down, and then you could go fast, right? So it's all in the setup. I think Agile is a lot like that. You get things set up. The hardest team to work with is a well-oiled machine with the kinds of foundation that I'm talking about. The ability to deliver features rapidly and get outcomes that you're looking for fast. It's actually hard to keep up with a team like that. And that's all in the setup. And so many companies, just get into a mess and try to scale by making the mess smaller messes. And that's just not going to work.
Yeah, but I want to ask a question about that part too. In that part, have a lots of misunderstanding, because lots of company is trying to start with a simple, and also, as you said, the foundation, but they are saying foundation, create one team and try to some Scrum or Kanban try to work with that frameworks. And they are saying this is our pilot model and foundation. It's not the same thing, as I understand. Yeah, this is not the same thing to create one small team and they work with this team as some agile models like Scrum, like Kanban, and to continue with the whole company. I think this is not same what you explained to us. So I think that's an important point to be to improve all foundation levels, not just to create one team.
Yeah, and sometimes you might feel it's impossible to move. We have this legacy system, and it's just a struggle. Well, at TogetherSoft, I'd say we re-architected the system maybe every 18 months. As crazy as that sounds. Yeah, slow down and go fast. That's
Yeah.
right, Michael. I do that all the time. Matter of fact, I'm a school board president. That's my motto. Everybody knows it. Introduce something in one meeting, let it percolate, and introduce it. Then maybe vote on it. Like slow down and go fast. I say that all the time. It's really funny you type that. But there's another technique where you can recognize we've got a problem, too much technical debt, maybe too much organizational debt. You can take what I would call like a tiger team and help with, because sometimes the reason we re-architected it was so much had changed in say 18 months with our understanding of the market, where we wanted to go, right? We're not losing our brains. It's not like we forgot what we built, but you know what? Forget trying to slowly morph our way to there, leapfrog it, build something new, put it out, because especially if you've got constant new customers coming in and maybe a slightly different market, you can understand which set of features you might need to start that with, and not going to be parity and everybody's going to, I didn't, it's kind of funny. I'm my own company, but I use Together for my daily work type thing. And the new version wasn't good enough. So I didn't switch myself, but it was good enough for some clients, and that, so there's different ways. If you step back, you don't always have to move the whole monolith. You can sometimes come around and practice creating a better space, creating a more collaborative approach. Keep narrowing it down to almost prototype the process and the tools and the people and the way we work, and see how that works in a small, and then spread it back out. So that there's something that I found successful a couple times in my career, just rebuilding a brand new version.
Okay, and we have different questions, but before the questions, I'm wondering about, is there any Turkish guy in this conversation or in this session? Because there is no Turkish guy say hello from Turkey, hello from Istanbul. Yeah, I'm waiting some Turkish guys, and let's ask the other question. Yeah, coming from Krishna, organic scaling versus vertical scaling, this scaling. What do you suggest?
Well, speaking of the thought bubbles above our heads to be aligned, before I can answer that, I'm not exactly sure what any of that means. so I'm a little reluctant to, vertical scaling. I don't know enough about what that means. Like for me, I've often thought of scaling for an application, like a web app. And then, and even for there, what I try to do is figure out what sort of, for lack of a better term, attributes, or, if I was to plot number of users per second, or what kind of attributes are you trying to scale? Volume, size, speed, maybe all three, who knows? So that's kind of like, I don't know what's meant by, sorry, Srifani or Krishna, sorry.
Yeah, maybe we can take some details about, because I couldn't get the organic scaling, as you said, versus vertical scaling means. And also, while waiting that question, I have lots of questions, but after complete these questions, I will ask my questions. And let's continue with the Royas questions. Yeah, can you tell
Yeah,
us? Yeah, go
that's
on.
a good one. As I mentioned, because of my, as luck would have it, my experience with heavyweight methods as a self-defense mechanism, and frankly, as a taxpayer, I'm thinking, no, I don't want to just waste the taxpayers' money and waste my time. I tend to be impatient. That's another good attribute for software development, is try to get results, try to be impatient. Um, and therefore, my experience led me to a lightweight process, kind of a two-phase process. So for me, the values, like individuals and interactions, again, I sold tools, I built tools, I used tools. I'm a process nut. I'm always like, oh, that was bad. Okay, let's make sure we fix it in the process, right? So, but the people and the conversations are way more important, because with folks who are able to do things on their own, they will create better process. They will do the thing. Right? You require less command and control, if I could use that term. So that was key to me. Now, the working software was a classic where, I saw people doing all kinds of design, everything other than having anything demonstrable. And working with Peter Code, one of the mantras that we used was frequent, tangible, working results. So that's why, it certainly hit a frequency with my colleagues here, but to me that was key to be here. You got to have stuff that works. None of the, 1,000 use cases doesn't matter. Object models don't matter. That's why TogetherSoft was so cool, because I could dream up object models and there was actually code behind them. Right. So it was part of the solution, or vice versa. There's, you change the code, there's some models so you can get a visualization and share knowledge differently. And then the customer collaboration I learned, again, because I was doing Defense Department work, bid and proposals, but I quickly learned, just get something together. Who the hell can create a 1-year proposal with a plus or minus 5% accuracy for research and development? Not, okay, you've built 15 brick houses, how much is the 16th gonna, right? No, this was almost like lunacy. So I learned very early on what really counts is building a rapport with the customer, doing what they want in spite of what's written, doing the smartest thing possible, doing the best management with the money that you have, all those kinds of things. I've built my career on doing the right thing for the customer, sometimes even when they didn't think it was the right thing at first. Because that's, you build that relationship, you collaborate, good things happen. Versus by the time you need a contract, it's over. Right? It's too late. And then the responding to change. Building that IBM MES system, there was one funny point, maybe a month, where the project manager from IBM said, "Oh, that project that we wrote up back when we first started, it has a thing in there that you have to implement referential integrity." I'm like, well, meanwhile, the system's running, we're adding stuff, right? So we've already built kind of the framework and kind of took like an almost like an object-oriented database approach. So we're using so we need to work on Oracle and DB2. It needed to work on two different things. So we kept it really generic. No, it's on the schedule. You got to do it. I'm like, really? It's not going to add any value. It might even slow us down. We're already controlling that with the object model. Nope, you got to do it. It's on. You wrote it. You got to do it. I'm like,
it's in scope.
Okay. So luckily I had heuristics and we tracked the kind of work we did in the different areas, so to speak. So that month, all they got was work in the data management layer, and pretty pointless. They got no new features. They got nothing out of it. But so there's a classic non-ability for someone to change, and had to follow the plan. And I was like, well, it's your money. Don't bitch at me. You just wasted a month of development, and all we did was add referential integrity where we didn't really need it. So, that sort of lesson, again, was key from the kind of my experiences. So that's what they mean to me. So I hope that helped.
Yeah, okay. And also we have different comments. And what should we stop doing in Agile that people usually end up doing? Yeah.
anything that's not providing value. So one of my phrases to think about Agile is I call it mind the gap, like the gap in time. It's a little bit of a play on, the gap between a train and the platform or anything, right? It's a gap, but really what I mean is a gap in time between doing something and seeing a result, getting feedback. The longer that is, the worse it could be. So unit tests, if you're as good as Uncle Bob, are a matter of seconds. Feedback, boom, I write some code, boom, I get some feedback. I do behavior-driven development. I write like cucumber tests, acceptance tests. They're a little bit longer. They might be not microseconds, but seconds. But nonetheless, it's giving me feedback. And the same, to ratchet it to the worst case is we built the wrong thing and shipped it, and the customer told us it's not right. That's a horrible, right? That's a huge gap in time that you egotistically thought you were doing the right thing and didn't bother to check anywhere along the way. You could have stopped that. So what people typically do is follow, something almost by like dogmatically instead of pragmatically. And you really need to treat everything you do, think of it as a hypothesis. You'd be shocked at how small of a slice of a feature I can deliver to a client. Number one, because it's behind a client-only flag, so only they're seeing it. And number two, because it's even though I'm 90% sure of step two, and probably already started it by the time they see the results of step one. The point is that you get quick reinforcement, and they're going to ask for step two, which is kind of what we talked about, right? And it seems silly and stupid, but at the same time, it's why not? Why wait longer? Get that feedback, bring them into your development fold, help them guide you. And I've been doing that for decades.
Okay, and let's talk about executives. And yeah, as you know, lots of company or lots of transformation is starting with executives. But in my opinion, I'm suggesting not start with executives. Start with your agile coach, because agile coach is affecting the companies to transform the fake way. So let's forget the other part, but let's continue with the executive part. Yeah. So in my experience, while I'm working with one company, the executive, the C level CEO said to me, "Let's deal about the transformation. Yeah, I want to be transformed, but you have to sell to me." He said to me, "Yeah, that's a different experience." But what do you think about that part? How
So,
can you? Yeah, how can we deal?
so he said it should start with me. He said that.
No, he said me, you need to sell me to buy.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
you need to sell me. Why do I need to transform? So
Yeah. Well, I don't
I
know.
think
Why am I
that's
here?
yeah,
Yeah. Why,
yeah, I
why are
think
we
that's a
talking?
great.
Yeah. No, that's another good one. I remember the days of trying to sell object oriented, although why? It's a
Mhm.
technology. Why do we need to sell agile? It's a way of working. I don't know. But I remember that too. It's kind of hilarious in some sense, because it's like, well, what are your metrics now? We don't have any. Well, why do I have to create some? So it's almost I think it's an opportunity to start a conversation and to find out how serious they are. And the way that we tend to work with teams is, yeah, there's some reason we're there in the first place. So
Mhm.
there's initial, even during pre-sales, I run a very agile proposal process that scares a
Mhm.
lot of people. But the whole idea is we're trying to understand each other. We're trying to understand what does the CEO think is going on in the company, or any of the CXOs, any of
Mhm.
those folks, any of the leadership. It's really, I've already spent free like an hour or two talking with folks to try to get at what, what is it that you think is going on? What do you think are the pains that you're experiencing? What do you think might be some future gains? If only we could do blah. Because if you don't come to some understanding about that, then you might just be doing, I don't know, scrum training, or just kind of going through the motions. And so it's really challenging. And I must admit to preferring being able to work with a smaller either chunk of the organization. One organization, hey, can you train 50 teams? No. Next question. Like that's insane. And I also tend to sort of stop people in their tracks when I say I don't do training. I don't even do coaching.
Why? Yeah.
What? Well, let me explain. And it might be again, the thought bubbles I've ever had. What I mean is, I'm not saying I won't do some little aspects of, hey, let's work on a toy project for showing you how behavior-driven development works, maybe. Or let's do test-driven development. Let's have a day, like a code retreat day, where all we do is we over and over again, we write code to solve the game of life. And because it's just practicing, learning how to throw away your code, learning how to do test-driven development. Okay, that's training. But when we're talking about agile work with the team and trying to transform, or whatever you want to call it, instead, I like to think of it as more like mentoring, or with American football, the quarterback, who touches the ball every play mostly, and has, it's almost like a coach on the field. And can get smacked in the mouth and can get hurt, and can also help the team, with the successful pieces around that can help, right? That's more of what I would consider mentoring, working on your problems in your context, what you really face, because that's what you have to do. So if I go over into the room and we do some training and you come back and can't figure out how to apply it, so that's why I say, coaches, they're on the sideline. They don't play the game. They're just watching. All right. So anyway, it might be a subtle, and it might, I'm not going to die on that hill, but in general, that's what I mean. Is it's so important to help teams deal with their real world problems in their context, and that's why different teams can approach, agile differently. Some have super high compliance. Some might be working on systems that can cause harm, or whether it's life, limb, or property, or financial. Okay, you might want to do things to be compliant, right? So it's really important to help people solve problems that they face every day. So that's what I mean.
I think that's a great point, to start the transformation, to start something, to understand the real daily problems. And while we are talking about leadership, I want to ask another question. What do you think about agile leadership? That's very popular, as you know. Let's start 2 days training, agile leadership training. You will
Oh,
your mindset. You will be agile, not too agile. I will teach you to be agile. What do you think about that leadership trainings to change mindset with 2 days training?
sign me up. I wish I had known that a long time ago. I'm still working on it. Well, since I don't really know what it is, except what you just described it. One of the things we work on, my colleague Jon Kern, as I mentioned, he's really, I often call him the people and culture guy. It's not, he ran a bunch of projects. He worked with, big consulting firms, hardware and software. So he's done a lot of that stuff, but he's opened my eyes to what is super important, and that is the mindset, the way we make our meaning, and kind of how the organization flows knowledge through it. So we use a couple of tools. One is to kind of check what we call the motivational orientation, sort of it ranges in kind of how autonomous is the organization or how command and control are they, because that helps us. We grow when we're presented with some opportunities, maybe just a little beyond our reach, a little uncomfortable. That's when we grow. And I think at times when I was working with teams and individuals, I probably hit that well. I know I have helped individuals really blossom and grow. And other times it felt like it didn't work at all. And I think it's because I didn't quite understand that I probably put something too challenging, so they shut down, or they're just like, no, right? So there's having this information can help you better set your team up and your people up for success, because you can work on some what we call developmental working practices. And then the other thing is organizational network analysis, where we can tell sort of how siloed the organization, how does information flow, are there giant hubs, everything goes through, and are there mutual relationships where you've got a more flatter organization and the flow is more horizontal than vertical.
Mhm.
So you can measure that. You can take steps to try to change it and make people aware of it. And some of the workshops we do with cross-functional teams it's kind of like a hidden feature underlying the approach we take, is it blends a lot of these theories into practices that help start changing the way conversations happen around the company. And that is the start of making it safe, making people able to innovate, teaching how to do safe experiments. So, if you try something and it fails, it's not fail, it's all right. Cool. What did we learn? Did you fold that back into our wiki or in the process? Or, that's okay. Like, you don't want to chop their heads off. Otherwise, they're not going to stick their heads up the next time. So it's that aspect is super important, and it can help the process and tool. Like I said, people, process, and tools in that order. And tools are really third distant, very distant, but the people side is huge. So yeah, I don't know if you can learn it in 2 days. I'm still trying to learn it, but you can be exposed to it. You can understand the concepts of mindset and like the way we make our meeting. Super important.
Yeah, okay. And also, the last question is about value stream management and also value stream mapping, value stream management, value stream. It's very popular in nowadays while transforming. I think that's very important point. If you want to transform, we have to know our flow, our value stream, and we need to try to improve that value streams, as you said, to know their current situation. What do you think about value stream management, mapping, or value stream?
Well, we do it all the time with our clients, and it's probably not, some people maybe if the real hardcore value stream management people saw what we did, maybe they would laugh at it. But it really, that's part of the process that we follow, that we've built up over the past 3 years. Jon Turley and I focuses the first, kind of the very first step is what is value? What's your purpose? I like to joke, if you haven't watched Office Space, you should. But there's a funny part of that movie where the Bob and Bob efficiency consultants are coming in and and interviewing you, and they're kind of like, so what is it that you do here? And so it's a really funny line, and I sometimes use that to see for effect. But it's super important, because if you do not understand what's value, what is our customers looking for, it's really hard to do anything other than polish, like improving part of the process without understanding how does it impact the value delivery is okay. You're improving it, but who knows if it's the right thing to improve? Or
Yeah.
as an engineer, I think I'm blessed with more systems thinking, a much more holistic approach. The boundaries of your value stream, leak into upstream, it leaks into the customer, and downstream because you're delivering it back to the customer. So, it's really important to understand that and everything in between. So we use that as a tool for a couple reasons. One is mapping the current process, and we don't go into excruciating. We can literally do this because we can time box it. We've done it, in 4 hour sessions, for example, or it's basically maybe 16 hours, maybe 20 hours. You can spread it out however you want, because we'll make sure that we get the breadth first, and we get at some because they're often low hanging fruit comes bubbling up. But the important part is in the beginning, understanding your current process, and we do it without executives in the room. There's no high-powered people in the room. There's nobody who's fearful. Everybody can suddenly find themselves a voice. So it's actually shocking sometimes to see how open people become. The fears, starts to go away, and people start to spill out the pains, and even things like, oh, well, if you did this here, we could really do better. Okay, there's a gain. Cool. So the current process mapping allows us to build that relationship amongst people that may have never even worked together. Because in a lot of places, they just cooperate. Handoffs, throw it over the wall, because we want to make sure everybody's busy, 100% busy. So, then you can discover huge delays. You can discover reverse flows. Like, well, how often does it fail in test? Or how often does a bug go out into the, God forbid, to the client? All right, and you start measuring those defects, and then sometimes we, along the way, we pepper in agile and lean concepts, because sometimes you see, oh wow, you're doing this huge batch thing. Okay, well, there's a big chunk of your delay. So we help expose them to how to think about their process, find the most important pains, the biggest wastes, then ideate and create a new future process, kind of dream. And this is the hard part, is unleashing yourself to dream big. But we try to get them to come up with a future process to help solve the problems they just, surfaced. And so, yeah, it's a super important. I think it's a pretty easy way. Like I said, we work with, often it's, 15 people in a Zoom room, or we might split into a couple different rooms, do a workshop and come back together. So we actually teach a method while doing it that you can do this next time on your own, right? And we'll help you implement. We'll do whatever, but it's really just to help open the team's eyes up to, wow, that was fun. We collaborated cross-functional. Wow, it was amazing to learn what other people's perspectives were. Now I see why Sally does this and Joe does that. And they've been working together for years. And it took silly us to come in and get them to talk to each other. So that's what I think about it.
Yeah, that's a great point. So I take my notes to start with why, and to know what's value. And I think without ego is important point in that, to continue with this process. If they want to be same pace, transparency without ego, any C level can work with the other level without ego to improve their whole processes, because some bottleneck comes from the C level, but they can clearly need to say it. Yeah, the problem is in that area. So I think that's are important points. So before to close the session, my last question, the standard question: what's your suggestion about the agile transformation, to agile coach, to scrum masters, to leaders? 3 suggestions.
Wow. Well, I think everything kind of gets underpinned by making sure the environment is safe enough to try things. But so it's kind of assuming you're able to have some bit of safety. I think it's super important to be humble, treat what you're thinking and what you're planning to do as a hypothesis, and figure out the simplest way to test it. And building the whole damn thing is not the simplest way to test it. And from it's working in the small, constantly reinforcing. It's a lot of little things that make
Mhm.
for a good agile environment and team and it's that constant reinforcement, be able to share knowledge. How do you onboard people? You know, where do I go if I'm come to your company and start working? How do you begin to bring me into the culture, into the fold?
Hmm.
And I always caution against over complicating things. It's I like to say it's really easy to design a complicated system, whether it be a big, huge database or a giant system or a huge process. That's child's play. Anybody can do that. It takes no skill. What takes skill is understanding sort of the interconnectedness and the more the systems thinking to what can I remove? How can I make this simpler? How can
Hmm.
I, what's the, like if I took one thing too much away, then it wouldn't work. Okay, put that back. So I think a lot of it is, again, even that's being humble. Treat
Mhm.
your process as something that also needs to be prototyped and done in an agile manner. And this is easy for me to say. I'm blessed, maybe with my own mindset,
Mhm.
but I always felt, and I preach this all the time, two things. Work is subsidized learning.
Hmm.
So it's on you. If, like, let's say, well, our boss didn't say we could do test driven development or BDD or whatever. Why do you need permission? Why don't you just make this part of your practice? Can't you be? And I understand some folks in contract because I get it. It's easy
Mhm.
for me to say. It's not always easy for everybody to do. But I always use another motto about better to beg forgiveness than ask permission, trying to do the right thing. And uh, the other, also easier said than done, but I was blessed to have been fired from a company when I thought I was one of the best employees known to man. For sure, there couldn't have been any better employee. But I got fired. So I came home, cried. Next day, I went across the street, got a better job for more money. And I learned at a ripe young age of like 16, nobody is irreplaceable. You can be fired so that plus my girlfriend, now my wife, helped me realize saving money gives
Hmm.
me a cushion where I can do the things that through my career, like, wow, you're going to get fired, John. Well, I'm trying to do the right thing, not, you know, but that's easier said than done if you have money in the bank. It's not so easy if I have to wait for the next paycheck. Again, I just say that as aspirational things that as a young, it took me a while, and I'm older now, as you can see, but sort of doing the right things and being able to weather the storm if you get whacked from the company. But it's so that gives you freedom to try to do the right things. And in my experience, a good company and a good manager, and I had so many of them. I'm so blessed, and I still get together with one of my very first ever job. We have a reunion, and one of my best ever mentors I still meet, and I thank him every year because it was such a blessing to be given that kind of freedom to try things, make mistakes, and they knew I had my heart in the right place, so they didn't fire me, right? So that's again, it's my journey through life. It's not your mileage might vary, but that those are lifelong lessons that I hold dear to this day.
That's a great experience. And thank you, John. And I take lots of notes today again. And I want to say firstly, thank you to accept my invitation to share your knowledge and to answer our questions. And second, I want to say thank you to our attendees to ask their questions, to come and try to learn together. And next week we will discuss it Jeff Sutherland again, and with the second round, and I will announce the December's calendar in a couple of days, and let's learn and grow together. Thanks again, John. See
Thank
you
you.
next time.
Have a good day. Bye.
Have a good day. Bye bye.